Well, it's Friday, February 20th. I'm Brittany Noble. Here's what's coming up on the breakdown. Republican House Speaker Mike Johnson denies the request of Democrats and Reverend Jesse Jackson Sr.'s family to honor the late civil rights leader and two-time presidential candidate in the U.S. Capitol Rotunda. Florida officials are holding a black father responsible for his son's actions after he kills 4 people in a car accident. Plus, a black man is making history as the only black male producer to lead a major theater show starring Hollywood's leading man, Denzel Washington. Brian Anthony Moreland joins us to talk about his landmark opportunity. And a Texas-based organization is making an impact by empowering black communities through the education advancement and social intervention. The founder, Deron Gadsden, will share his mission to developing sustainable programs. The breakdown starts now. Court ruled today that President Donald Trump does not have the authority to impose sweeping tariffs on nearly every country under the International Emergency Economic Powers Act. This move is a major blow to the president's signature economic policy. The decision upheld a lower court ruling from the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Federal Circuit that ruled Trump's tariffs were illegal. Though the ruling restricts the president's ability to use the International Emergency Economic Powers Act, it does not prevent the president from imposing tariffs under different trade authorities. House Speaker Mike Johnson has reportedly denied a request from Democrats and the family of Reverend Jesse Jackson Sr. for the civil rights icon to lie in the state at the Capitol, U.S. Capitol. Democratic leaders and members of the Jackson family requested that Reverend Jackson Sr., the legendary civil rights leader, two-time presidential candidate, and longtime activist, be honored with a Lion State ceremony inside the Capitol Rotunda. But Republican House Speaker Johnson declined the request, citing a recent rule change that reserves the Rotunda honor for former U.S. presidents only. In 2005, Rosa Parks became the first and only citizen granted that honor. In July of 2020, Representative John Lewis, the first black lawmaker lay in state, was on the east front steps of the Capitol due to COVID restrictions. And in Florida, a black father will spend 37 years behind bars after he allowed his 15-year-old son to drive without a license. According to officials, 70-year-old Richard Ferguson's teen son blew through a stop sign and fatally hit a grandmother and her 3 grandchildren. Ferguson, who is also battling stage 4 pancreatic cancer, was found guilty of 4 counts of manslaughter by culpable negligence in October. According to witnesses' testimonies, Ferguson moved a truck to let his son out and then gave him the keys to drive the Impala. Ferguson denied that accusation at trial, claiming that the teen took the keys off the rack, but the jury didn't buy it. He took the stand with tears in his eyes to express his remorse over the entire ordeal. And authorities say his son was going 80 miles per hour when he crashed into another vehicle. The judge said a jury determined Ferguson's decision were negligent, criminal, and a reckless disregard for human life. A new report by Julian finds that more than 70 suspected modern-day lynchings have been occurring in the Deep South since 2000. The Crimson Record study highlights patterns in suspected lynching cases have often been ruled suicides over the last 25 years. In 2025, reports surfaced of 2 black men bodies, Trey Reed and Tori Medley, found hanging from trees in Wisconsin and Mississippi. Their families continue to fight for answers surrounding their loved one's death. In the report, it argues that lynching did not end in the 20th century, but has adapted, continuing through systemic neglect, inadequate investigations, and misclassifications of these deaths by law enforcement. And workers at Volkswagen in Chattanooga, Tennessee get the green light to join the United Auto Workers Union, which marks the first non-union factory in the South to organize. The contract was approved yesterday. The move secures pay bumps and job protections. It's a rare win for UAW in the South. Workers initially voted twice against joining the union before casting ballots in favor in 2024, making the Volkswagen plant one of the few to unionize in the South. Also, the historic Vernon African Methodist Episcopal Church in Tulsa, Oklahoma's Greenwood District is getting a $1.5 million grant to secure its future as a permanent cultural institution. The effort is being led by massacre descendant Christy Williams through the Vernon Witness. That's a project, and plans include developing an interpretive center and museum inside the church's original basement. During the 1921 Tulsa Race Massacre, white mobs destroyed the church's sanctuary while burning 35 square blocks of what was known as Black Wall Street. But the basement survived, and Black residents sought shelter there as the violence unfolded. Rebuilt by 1925, Vernon remains the only intact Black-owned structure still standing from the original Black Wall Street era. Well, coming up, Washington, D.C. is putting more than $200,000 into preserving Black historic grave sites. We'll explain more about what is next for families there. Stay with us. You're watching The Breakdown.
Hey y'all, welcome to The Other Side of Change, only on the Black Star Network and hosted by myself, Rhea Baker, and my good sis, Jamira Burley. We are just two millennial women tackling everything at the intersection of politics, gender, and pop culture.
And we don't just settle for commentary. This is about solution-driven dialogue to get us to the world as it could be and not just as it is.
Watch us on the Black Star Network, so tune in to The Other Side of Change.
Violent white supremacy is, quote, the most persistent and lethal threat in the homeland.
The greatest terrorist threat to the homeland is the homegrown violence stream, including hate crime committed on behalf of some kind of white supremacist ideology.
They are coming after everything in Black America. MAGA and Donald Trump are specifically targeting Black America. They are going after the money. Attack Black Lives Matter. Attack critical race theory, attack woke, DEI. MAGA wants to defund Black America. This is a perfect example of their desire to completely degrade and de-emphasize Black people.
Hi, I'm Swing Cash, Basketball Hall of Famer, and you're watching Black Star Network.
Restore and protect grave sites of enslaved people and Civil War soldiers in Washington, D.C. As we recognize Black History Month, Washington, D.C. is making a major investment in preserving Black history in one of the most sacred places possible, our burial grounds. Mayor Muriel Bowser and the D.C. Office of Planning have announced a $250,000
That wasn't
in grants to help protect and restore historic African American cemeteries in the nation's capital, including some of the last intact Black burial sites remaining in the district. This funding is part of a new program aimed at preserving these spaces, not just as historic landmarks, but as living reminders of Black legacy, Black community, and Black survival. Joining me now is Anita Cozart. Thank you for joining us here on The Breakdown.
It's my pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Absolutely. For people watching, why should this announcement in Washington, D.C. matter to families everywhere?
Sure. Well, as we all know, Washington, D.C. is a place of rich and amazing culture and heritage. And that extends from our past, and we can learn from our past to really inform the future of where we're going as a city. Many people often think about Washington in terms of growth and development and a place to be that's vibrant with a lot of restaurants and entertainment, as well as history. In many ways, our heritage is what makes us distinct. And as we are in Black History Month, we couldn't be more proud than to be helping to contribute to and celebrate that heritage by supporting organizations that are really the stewards of a lot of our culture and heritage in this city. There's leadership and excellence that has come out of Washington, D.C., and you can learn about that in our cemeteries. Unfortunately, in our past, there hasn't been significant enough investment to make sure that our cemeteries that hold this heritage are in good condition, but we're glad that this year we're going to be partnering with an organization in the Benning Ridge area and also in the Georgetown area of Washington, D.C. that are going to be able to improve the grounds of these areas and also open up access both digitally but also physically in that area. So we're really, really excited about this program.
It is an exciting time. As I understand, the city says this is some of the only remaining intact African American burial grounds in D.C. Can you tell us what happened to the others?
So many of the others, this is a part of the legacy of segregation in the United States of America. Okay. That lack of investment and the segregation of Black residents has meant that many of the places that were burial grounds, sacred spaces, were not treated as such. The cemeteries that we're making grants to and the organizations that are going to support the improvements in these areas are ones that have been able to keep the heritage and the legacy and the stories that are behind those who are buried there. They've been able to be stewards of those. So because of that, we think that being able to tell the stories, even for the burial grounds that have not been treated as sacred spaces, is an opportunity for education of all district residents and all people who are interested in the United States of America and its history.
So tell us how the $250,000 will be used.
Sure. So it's going to be split between two organizations. As I said, there's some burial grounds in Georgetown associated with the Mount Zion Cemetery and the Female Union Band Historic Memorial Park. And those are in the Georgetown area. And what they're going to be doing is making some infrastructure improvements, basic improvements that allow for controlling erosion and making accessible ways for people to come in and out of the cemetery. And they're also going to be updating an online system with information about people who've been buried there and the history. They're also going to do a couple of community events, one on Emancipation Day in April and one on Juneteenth in June.
Oh, wow.
And then the Woodlawn Cemetery, they also are going to be replacing some of their fencing, removing some hazardous trees, again, to open up that access and make sure that there's signage that provides interpretation and education for people who want to visit.
Now, this program is named after Paul E. Slovey Sr., a historian and genealogist. Why is genealogy and documentation such an important part of protecting our history?
That's a great question. And we're happy in the Office of Planning here in the District of Columbia to have staff who have deep expertise as it relates to cemeteries and the importance of genealogy. And this is essentially telling the story and making sure that it's backed up with supported data where we can find it. And so that it involves a lot of research that our staff do, but we have partners throughout the city and the region who have deep connections to the history here. As we know, in Black culture, there is a diaspora, and there are people who are deeply committed to the city who may be in different parts of the region and parts of the country and the world, who do this research and share this research and make sure that those who are the stewards of places like these cemeteries have access to it. And so that is really about telling the story, not just of these individuals, because their stories are kind of a microcosm of where we have been as a city and how we have evolved as a city.
So tell me, how do efforts like this help families today who are still searching for their roots and trying to trace their ancestry?
That's a great question. We're happy to be partnered with these two organizations that really have a tradition and expertise in being able to help families connect to their history and their past. One of the organizations has an online information system, and they're going to use part of the funds from this grant to be able to deepen their work on that and bring that to more people who are interested in learning about their history and their past of their families. And we expect through the educational programs that are going to be a part of these grants that more people will be interested and be able to be connected to the kinds of rich library of resources that we have in Washington, so that people can do some of their research and be connected with those who are experts in the field.
Anita, what do you hope other cities and states take away from this? I mean, what should local leaders be doing right now to protect Black burial sites in their own communities?
Well, first is really to go to those who are the experts. This is something that we've been trying to get off the ground for a while. It's taken a little bit of time, but really for peers in other cities is really just to connect with a lot of your faith-based institutions that have some of this history and be able to think about ways to partner with them. And then also for those who have preservation as part of their charge, really making sure that these partnerships that happen between non-government entities and government entities smooth the way to make them happen and really get the word out, because there's an appetite for this kind of thing. And I just think in a personal way, I'm excited that my children who are Washingtonians will have access to upgraded versions of these burial grounds so that they can connect to history and culture that is a part of who they are as Washingtonians.
Great work that you guys are doing there at the DC Office of Planning. Anita Kozart, thank you so much for joining us and bringing this information onto The Breakdown.
Thank you. Thank you. Take good care.
We'll have much more coming up after the break. Stay with us. You're watching The Breakdown.
Hey y'all, welcome to The Other Side of Change, only on the Black Star Network and hosted by myself, Rhea Baker, and my good sis, Jamira Burley. We are just two millennial women tackling everything at the intersection of politics, gender, and pop culture.
And we don't just settle for commentary. This is about solution-driven dialogue to get us to the world as it could be and not just as it is.
Watch us on the Black Star Network, so tune in to the other side of change.
Violent white supremacy is, quote, the most persistent and lethal threat in the homeland.
The greatest terrorist threat to the homeland is the homegrown violence stream, including hate crime committed on behalf of some kind of white supremacist ideology.
They are coming after everything in Black America. MAGA and Donald Trump are specifically targeting Black America. They are going after the money. Attack Black Lives Matter. Attack critical race theory. Attack woke, DEI. MAGA wants to defund Black America. This is a perfect example of their desire to completely degrade and de-emphasize Black people.
Hi, I'm Swing Cash, Basketball Hall of Famer, and you're watching Black Star Network.
Welcome back. Today on The Breakdown, we're spotlighting an organization that's redefining what community empowerment looks like from the inside out. The Be Impactful Foundation is focused on educational advancement, social intervention, and sustainable programming aimed at creating long-term change in equitable communities. Their mission centers on building meaningful relationships, developing programs that last, and increasing community influence so that transformation doesn't stop when the spotlight fades. So joining me right now is the founder of the Be Impactful Foundation, Duran Gadsden. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Take us back to the beginning. What was the catalyst for launching the Be Impactful Foundation?
Yes, ma'am. So we started in 2021, so we're still fairly young and fairly new. Originally, it's kind of just something I wanted to do with my family and friends, just try to find a way to make some change. And working with a lot of other community organizations and nonprofits, I've seen people kind of work in silos, and there not be sometimes be a little bit of red tape to get to the work. So I just wanted to be able to kind of just like action and just get stuff done. So just kind of creating a space where we could respond quickly to community issues and concerns, and then really just collaborate and work together. My biggest thing was just connecting a bunch of other organizations that were already doing so much work, so that way we could make a larger impact versus spreading out and having to navigate multiple areas of resources.
And your foundation emphasizes building meaningful relationships as a core pillar. Why is that so important to you?
Yes, ma'am. So we have a saying called the community way. And that's literally just the way that we operate and work together. So I grew up in Charleston, South Carolina, and we have just naturally in our culture existing in kind of a more tribal village space with Gullah Geechee culture, if you've ever heard of that. So that's just kind of my entire upbringing. The whole saying that it takes a village to raise a family. I don't believe that saying ends when you turn a certain, or to raise a child doesn't end when you turn a certain age. That's something that continues to matriculate throughout the process. And, going to an HBCU, we always talked about having each other's backs, being connected, going on internships, and people finding out I went to A&T, immediately gravitating and pulling me in to make sure that I was successful in that summer internship, both representing myself, Black people, and North Carolina A&T well. And I just wanted to continue that, in my life journey.
Oh, that's good. Tell us more about these sustainable programs that you've created rather than just short-term solutions.
Yes, ma'am. So our main programs that we do right now are what we call Black Literature Matters, which is pretty much a big adult book fair that we started in Houston, Texas. We bring together Black-owned bookstores, authors, publishing companies. We started dropping Black libraries in what they call book deserts, so kind of like a food desert concept, but the same thing where children aren't able to get to libraries and whatnot. So we're putting them in a third ward, Houston, for example. And then two of our bigger events, this will be the 5th year doing this, both in Houston and in Charleston, South Carolina, where I'm from, is we have our back to school drive that we call Back to School Days, kind of a play on the words with the School Days movie. And then we have our Community Holiday Festival. Both of those events are kind of the same in essence. Is instead of just dropping off supplies and materials, we are trying to create a community vibe. The way that I always explain to people, and again, similar to how I grew up, is I try to curate the event like a family reunion. So we offer space for the parents, we offer space for the kids, we offer resources for both sides. In the back to school drive, we're also offering resources for teachers and schools. So we're making sure that the full community gets an experience. We feed everyone. We have a DJ. We play games. We give away raffles. So from a programming standpoint, how we engage with the community, that is very intentional. But then also, if you look at all of our events and all of our flyers, we try to host nothing with just Be Impactful. So it'll be almost like a Be Impactful and Friends, if you will. So we partner with, 3 or 4 nonprofits at a time in Charleston, 3 or 4 nonprofits at a time in Houston. Again, the idea is that this isn't about Be Impactful itself as an organization, but how are we coming together as a community to be impactful? And then, that builds additional relationships that turns into additional work. And then that's how we continue to sustain, excuse me.
I want to hear just a little bit more about the Black Literature Matters program.
Okay. Yes, ma'am. So that was actually the first event that we ever had. That was our introduction to the world, if you will. And so, think of your middle school scholastic book fair, but a lot of what we try to do and Be Impactful is meeting people where they are. So we're not hosting events where people don't go. We'll find a brunch place or something like that in Houston, Black owned, so that we try to keep the money within the community and we bring everybody to that space. And then so we'll have 15 to 20 different authors. They'll have tables and they'll have an opportunity to be supported by the vendors, by the attendees of the event. And then my favorite part is what we call the Behind the Cover series. And we'll pick 5 to 7 authors depending on how long we have the space, and kind of think about the author portion of the book or the poem that you're reading or whatever the case may be, but in person. So they get an opportunity to talk about what inspired them to become an author, hopefully, again, encouraging, empowering people that may be in the audience that want to be an author. If they started a bookstore, which we have some friends and colleagues that have bookstores in Houston, they'll talk about their inspiration to open a bookstore, their inspiration to start a publishing company, which is usually often rooted in Blackness and lack of resources and access that they saw. And, we were able to connect those people with others through those conversations. They'll even do a brief Q&A. So it goes from, a brunch social event to a book fair to a panel, all hosted in, a 3 or 4 hour lunchtime on a Saturday, usually during Black History Month.
Oh, that is fantastic. Real quick, how can we support you?
Yes, follow us on Instagram. It is at Be Impactful Foundation. Check out our website. It's www.beimpactful.net. Join our events. Please feel free to donate. Please feel free to support. One of the things that we do, if you can kind of see here, is we also have Be Impactful merchandise. So we sell merchandise that me and one of our board members, who also owns his own Black-owned business, come up with and design together. This is what we call our impact icon line. So you can see I have Angela Davis on this shirt. So we take this opportunity to recognize impactful people of the Black community. And then that is also how we fundraise. So you get a nice, cool shirt that you can wear around Black History Month and other times, but you also immediately get to support some of the work that we're doing by purchasing.
All right, Deron Gadsden, thanks so much for joining us here on The Breakdown, the founder of the Be Impactful Foundation. We appreciate you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
All right, we'll be right back. Stay with us. You're watching The Breakdown.
With medicine and science under attack, I want to keep you and your family informed and healthy. I'm Dr. Ebony Hilton, and I knew at the age of 8 that I wanted to be a doctor. So I studied hard and became the first African-American female anesthesiologist hired at the Medical University of South Carolina since its opening in 1824. And I always say I was made into a doctor, but I was born to be a mom. And as a new mom, wife, sister, daughter, and friend, I understand how frightening a medical crisis can be. I care for individuals on some of the worst days of their lives, and it's my mission to provide you with a safe space to gain clarity on issues affecting your mind, body, and soul. I recognize that there are health disparities, particularly as it pertains to race, and I want to help bridge the gap between you and your healthcare providers. Join me every Thursday for Second Opinion on the Black Star Network, where each week I'll invite experts from various medical fields to share the latest health news. We'll discuss topics such as the vaccine debate, mental and sexual health, medical bias, infertility, menopause, andropause, nutrition, and aging. Together with my medical colleagues, we aim to provide you with a second opinion. Don't miss it, Thursdays only on the Black Star Network.
If in this country right now, you have people get up in the morning and the only thing they can think about is how many people they can hurt, and they got the power, that's the time for mourning.
For better or worse, what makes America special, it's that legal system that's supposed to protect minorities from the tyranny of the majority.
We are at a point of a moral emergency. We must raise a voice of outrage. We must raise a voice of compassion. And we must raise a voice of unity.
We are not in a crisis of party versus party. We are in a crisis of civilization, a human rights crisis, and a crisis of democracy itself. And guess what? You've been chosen to make sure that those that would destroy, those that would hate, don't have the final say, and they don't ultimately win.
I'm Risa Colbert, and you're watching the Black Star Network.
Brian Anthony Moreland is a two-time Tony Award nominee, and right now he is the only Black lead producer on Broadway. Moreland helps to shape what stories get told, who gets seen, and what audiences across America experience on the biggest stage in theater. And he's not just producing shows, he's producing record-breaking moments. His most recent Broadway production, Othello, starring Denzel Washington, achieved a 150% recoupment, a major milestone in an industry where only about 1 in 5 shows ever recoup their investment. But now, he's producing one of the most anticipated productions of the season, August Wilson's Joe Turner's Come and Gone, starring Taraji P. Henson and Cedric the Entertainer, and it's directed by the legendary Debbie Allen. Brian Anthony Moreland joins us on the breakdown today. Brian, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. So tell us a little bit more about how you became the force that you are today.
Oh my gosh, that's such a large question. But I will say that I really got very fortunate. I had a mother that really leaned into the arts. So I went to a private arts boarding school, and then that school took me east into the University of Hartford. And I got very lucky that I had more teachers that poured into me. And upon graduation, I moved to New York City and basically started working. And once I started working, I was performing on stages across America, and ran across Debbie Allen and Otis Salid, and they offered me another job that happened to not be performing. It happened to be line producing, and I really liked it, so I stayed. And now I'm celebrating coming into my 9th year, producing shows for Broadway.
Incredible. For people who may not understand how Broadway works behind the scenes, what does it mean to be a lead producer?
Oh, well, it's a great question. So essentially, Broadway is comprised of 41 individual buildings that we all operate under the banner of Broadway. But inside those 41 buildings, there are really 41 individual businesses. So every time there's a new show in that building, it's a brand new business, a new LLC, a new startup. Me, as the lead producer, I am the one who's financially responsible for the show. I sign my name to the SEC. I find the show, go and have a conversation with the theater owner, communicate with investors. So I raise the capital. I work with a marketing company to devise a marketing plan, hire everyone, and move into the theater, and there from the beginning to the end of it. I'm the person who has the most insane taxes in the world every single year with all the LLCs and the K1s. But that is the main job of the lead producer, is to be financially responsible for the show, book the show into a theater, and be the creative conduit for all of the different departments that actually work within those 16 unions that are housed within one theater on Broadway.
Now, why do you think that maybe there are still so few Black lead producers at the highest level?
I think it's a job that people have not thought above. I think when you are younger and you think, oh, I want to be a doctor, I want to be a lawyer, I want to be a fireman, I want to be a policeman, I don't think anyone in kindergarten says, I want to be a producer. I think that's part of it. And then the other side of it is, I think that it's access to knowledge and understanding of opportunity. I think that we think of the stage as an avenue that we belong on, but we also belong behind the scenes, creating those shows and fundraising those shows and driving the business of the show. I think that there are more people who would do it if there is more exposure and then also more support. I think that we can all see around the world that when we include all people, all boats float. And so by all people, I mean Black people, Asian people, Hispanic people. We see this in our films, we look at the success of Sinners. You look before that, you look at the success of Black Panther, you look at the success of Crazy Rich Asians. It just goes to show you that when you include all people, all cultures, the only color that everyone profits from is green. And you have to actually just open the doors and make the table wider so all of those stories get told.
You've been behind multiple productions at the Barrymore Theater, including The Piano Lesson and Othello, both of which broke records. What does that say about what audiences are looking for right now?
I think audiences are looking for truth. I think they're looking to be entertained. They're looking to be challenged. They're looking to see a familiar face on the stage. I got very lucky with August Wilson's The Piano Lesson, which starred Samuel L. Jackson and John David Washington and Danielle Brooks. It was later turned into a movie for Netflix. The Barrymore Theater, this will be my third show. Doing August Wilson's Joe Turner's Come and Gone will be my third show at the Barrymore Theater. The space itself is really intimate. The house crew at the Barrymore Theater, from the ushers to the box office, to the house manager, to every single production person that belongs at that theater backstage, they have such a camaraderie in this particular space. The bones of the building are absolutely beautiful. And I think that contributes to the success of the productions there. I think that they're only record-breaking because every single person pours into it and feels some ownership about the show. You know, when you first buy a ticket, that particular ticket, when you purchase, that particular ticket is touched probably 20 to 25 different hands, different departments that go into the programming of what it says on the ticket, to the date, to the price. And then you come and you bring that ticket to the theater and you're greeted by an usher. And that usher starts that show. It starts the feeling when you're greeted and you're greeted well. You sit down in your seat and you go, wow, I'm so happy to be here. And then the show happens. And then those actors take the stage and you walk out with a euphoric feeling. It was a good 2.5 hours in that space. And it's really all because every single person played a part in that process. Not just those that you see on the stage, but those backstage and those in the front of the house. And so I'm very fortunate. And I think that's why the shows have been so successful, is because it's the team around them. It's the management companies running them. It's the producing teams. It's the casting teams. So it's all hands on deck on Broadway.
And you have tickets on sale right now for your newest production, August Wilson's Joe Turner's Come and Gone, starring Taraji P. Henson and Cedric the Entertainer, all directed by Debbie Allen. Why was this the right moment to bring this story to Broadway?
Well, I think it's always the right time to hear August Wilson. I mean, he's a two-time Pulitzer Prize winning playwright. And I think it's always the right time to hear his words. But in this particular time, you know, in a world that is has so much chaos pulling at it, and so much turmoil in the world, and families being separated across the world, separated through challenges, through laws, through circumstances. Joe Turner's Come and Gone is a story about redemption of a man who's been wrongly enslaved, and he's in search to repair his family and put his family back together and start life again. And I think that story of togetherness, and that story of family, and that story of moving us forward is a story that every single person can relate to. And it's a story that every single audience member will be inspired by. You'll go back to your communities and go, wow, how can we all do better? And so I think that for that purpose, August Wilson is always the right time. Joe Turner's Come and Gone is the right time right now. You know, one of the things that I love about doing this particular production is that Debbie Allen is a Howard University alum, and Taraji P. Henson is a Howard alum. And this is Taraji's first time on stage, and she's getting a chance to be directed by a woman who helped give her a scholarship that helped complete her college education when she was at Howard University. So it's a wonderful full circle moment there.
I also want to mention that your production of Othello reached 150% recoupment, which is rare. And what does it take to make a Broadway production financially successful in today's climate?
Another great question. It takes a lot of faith and a lot of sleepless nights. But I will tell you, most importantly, it takes a cast that believes in you. Denzel Washington and Jake Gyllenhaal put their trust in me, and Kenny Leon put his career in my hands in order to actually create a production of Othello that was able to do that at the Barrymore Theater. So it started with the cast and with the director. And after that, it was the ability of galvanizing an entire team of people to say, okay, this is the story we're here to tell, a story that's not been told in over 40 years, a story that has not been shared on the stage in over 40 years. There have not been, Denzel Washington is only the second Black man to play Othello on Broadway. And so it's really challenging, and it's a once in a lifetime opportunity where you get a constellation of actor like Denzel Washington, like Jake Gyllenhaal, under the direction of Kenny Leon, Tony Award winning Kenny Leon, in William Shakespeare's words of Othello. In this climate, it's a once in a lifetime opportunity. It was lightning in a bottle. And I think that the general public responded that way because we want to see our greats and our talents in stories that are not told often. And that is what made that show a record breaker. People came in droves, and they broke the Barrymore box office record and made it the highest grossing revival of the season. And also, it's thanks to the investors. You know, Broadway is a privately funded, a private investment venture for Broadway in order to actually make it go. And so if we don't have that investment, there is no Broadway. So I was very, very happy that my investors took a risk, because even though you have Denzel Washington, and even though you have Jake Gyllenhaal, and even though you have Tony Award-winning director Kenny Leon, you still have other barriers to entry, whether that be travel, whether that be language. You might not respond to Shakespeare. That could diminish your returns. And so investors took a big risk with me on that production, and it happened to really pay off. So I was very happy that they actually said yes and got on the bandwagon for that.
You know, Brian, you've been recognized by Ebony's Power 100 and Variety's top Broadway list. You also have served on the Board of Governors of the Broadway League and co-chair of the Multicultural Task Force. Tell us, what changes are you pushing for right now inside the industry?
I'm pushing to drop a ladder behind me so the door stays open and other people get to climb those same ladders of success. I think that your opportunities are defined by someone giving you a chance to be in the room and do what it is that you love to do. I'm a walking return on many people's investment in me. I don't just mean the financial investment. I mean the unconditional investment that doesn't actually come from an actual dollar amount. It comes from wisdom. It comes from mentorship. It comes from somebody dropping the ladder down to me and allowing me to climb into that seat. And I'm a return on their investment in me. And so for me, it's about mentorship. It's about bringing in fellows and letting them observe the process and get their feet wet in the process as much as possible in all departments. I believe in diversity in all ways, not just in the narrow sense of the word in terms of color of diversity. I believe in diversity of backgrounds. So I have veterans working. I might have a veteran lighting designer working next to a first-time sound designer. And that type of mentorship or that type of diversity that happens on my teams just makes the productions better. And so for me, that's the best way to give back, is to open the door and to reach down to help people reach up and climb into those seats so that we can have more people. Because when you have more people, it just adds more seats at the table, and it's a much better meal when we have different varieties of food at the table.
All right, folks, tickets are on sale right now for Joe Turner's Come and Gone performances March 30th with opening night set for April 25th. Brian Anthony Moreland, thank you so much for joining us on The Breakdown.
Oh, thank you so much for having me on The Breakdown. Look forward to seeing you at the Barrymore Theater.
Well, that will do it for us today on The Breakdown. Thank you for spending part of your day with us. Be sure to keep the conversation going online. We always want to hear from you. Please send us your questions, your story ideas, everything that's happening in your community. And do not forget, we'll be back here again on Monday with more news, more context, and more voices that matter. For more news, special coverage, and on-demand content, visit our website,